So before we formally get started, let me just say I misspoke last week. I said I was going to talk about the book of Ruth on Wednesday at lunch, and I forgot that last Wednesday was when I'm talking about the Song of Songs. Maybe you tuned in for that instead, but it's a fun book. This Wednesday, I'm going to talk about the book of Ruth, and I just prepared a handout for that, although it's an outline. I may not share the outline. I can send it to you all. It's just a outline of the book with some ideas. But anyway, I'll be talking about the book of Ruth at lunch this Wednesday at noon. And of course, the book of Ruth is important for our class because in the Jewish tradition, Ruth is considered the sort of model Jew by choice, the person who chose to join the Jewish people out of love and commitment to her mother-in-law, as well as to the Jewish people and the God of Israel. And the book looks very favorably upon Ruth as a convert or a Jew by choice, because at the end of the book is given the lineage of Ruth. And of course, Ruth is the great grandmother of King David. So you can't get a better honor than that in the Jewish world, right? King David becomes the king and his descendants are forever supposed to be the king. And that leads to, of course, the Messianic era when the Messiah should be a descendant of King David. So the Messiah is basically a descendant of Ruth. That's pretty high yichus, we say in Hebrew. Yichus means status and lineage. So the Bible, by including the book of Ruth in it, seems to be indicating the value and importance of accepting people into our community. And that's certainly one of the themes of the book. But we're not going to talk about that today. So today, I guess we'll just get started now. Today, what we're going to talk about is the next steps. Now, of course, before COVID-19, I had planned that we would all be meeting personally and I could answer questions. And this session and the next session are hopefully going to be a little more interactive. So what I want to do is give you some idea of what the conversion ceremony looks like, the next steps of the process, and then just answer questions. And next session, again, was supposed to be in person, and I was going to try and invite in different people who are leaders in our congregation to talk about the things that they do and the organizations that they're part of. And you could get an idea of how you might want to get involved in the Jewish community, because that is really the best way to feel part of the community, is to really just get out there and start engaging. People will see you in the community. 98% of the people will welcome you and be so thrilled that you're part of our people. And then, of course, there's always that 2% who are xenophobes or who knows what, but that's their problem. The world has too many of those people anyway, but in any group of human beings, you'll have those kind of people. And my advice is just to ignore them. You don't need them. They don't define your life. You define your life. And 98% of the Jewish people, at least in our community, will welcome you. So let's talk about the next step. So, we got a chat here going. Oh, thanks. Yeah, so let's take a look at some documents here about the process. What I want to look at is, here we go. Not that one, but this one. So this is a checklist of things that I make for myself when I organize a conversion ceremony. So the first thing you would need to do is submit essays, and the essay questions will be another thing I have a document for. If you didn't receive the essay questions at the beginning of the class, I can resend them to you, but I'll show them to you this morning. Basically, they're just saying, asking to see that you understand what it is Judaism is about, what it means to you in particular, and how you intend to continue to be engaging in the Jewish community. The purpose of the essay questions is really for me and the other members of the Beit Din to know that this is something you've thought about, and this is something you really want to do. They're not trick questions. It's not like college essay questions. My son is now doing finals at the U of H, so he's studying 24 hours a day. It's not like that. And so people, I've discovered that people are different. Some people are more student oriented and they really have thought about this. They express themselves in writing. They want to say a lot, so they answer essay questions with a couple of pages each question. And other people are not writers. For whatever reason, that's not their area of talent. And so they write shorter answers. And so it really depends on you and what makes you feel comfortable. But the idea is, again, to find out that this is what you really want to do. Okay, so that's the essay questions. You should complete the terms list, although I don't need to see that. That's really for you. One of the things about being comfortable in the Jewish community is knowing the vocabulary that Jews use, which is one of the reasons that I constructed that list. I made it so that you can, if you know these terms, you'll feel comfortable in most Jewish conversations, that now somebody's not going to talk about something that you're not familiar with. You know, particularly, for instance, at the Passover Seder, for instance, you know what charoset is, you know what maror is, you know what matzah is, you know what chametz is. You know, all those things are terms that Jews just know because they grew up with it. And so if you know those terms, it helps you understand the holiday and understand conversations when you're speaking. So the terms do two things. It helps you with conversation, but it also is a good way to structure fact material related to Judaism. So I organized it by topic so that in each topic, if you understand what it means, you have a pretty good idea of what the topic is, and you understand how Jews understand that topic. So it's kind of both for conversation and feeling comfortable in the community, as well as checking you have sort of a basic knowledge of these Jewish ideas. I don't need to read it, but if you'd like to show it to me, I'm always impressed with people who do this. And I created the terms list before Google was popular. That's hard for me to believe now. But of course, with Google today, it's pretty easy to look many of these things up. And in the course of the class, I've pretty much talked about most of them anyway. For men, circumcision, of course, is required for Jewish men. If you're already circumcised, there's a symbolic action called a hatafat dam. The person who is our mohel, a mohel is the Jewish person who does the ritual circumcision. The person who does the most of those in Houston now is an MD. He's a doctor. He was an OB-GYN doctor, and he retired from that practice, and now he does brit milahs, which are the circumcision ceremonies. He's also happy to do the hatafat dam, and he does it medically. So you get poked with a very fine needle kind of a thing. He does it with all the necessary medical precautions. That's why I have him do it. Medically, it's not a major procedure. It's a very minor thing. It's like poking yourself with a needle or a pin. So it's done usually done right before the mikvah, the rest of the ceremony. And there's no medical need to recover or anything like that. It is, however, not a needle prick in your finger. It's in a sensitive part of the body. It's done, so whatever. It's done privately, but we do it that way. So that's for men. They need to do that. It symbolizes that you are joining the covenant of Israel, and that's the covenant that was established with Abraham from 4,000 years ago, basically. All Jewish males have had this covenant. So that's for men. Everybody goes into the mikvah, which is the ritual bath. So let me just, I checked with Rabbi Gelman. So the mikvah, the community mikvah, it's a ritual bath. And there's a lot of rules and regulations about what constitutes a kosher mikvah. There's only a very few conservative synagogues that have a mikvah. Most of the time we rely on a community mikveh or an Orthodox one if an Orthodox synagogue will let us use a kosher mikveh. And in Houston, the mikveh at United Orthodox Synagogues has been a community mikveh available for anybody to use. And that was done by intentional design by the past chief or head rabbi at UOS, and is continued with the current head rabbi, Rabbi Gelman at UOS. It's a contract that was actually entered into between United Orthodox Synagogue and the Jewish Federation of Houston, and all the congregations contribute to the maintenance of the mikveh. And there's a mikveh fee which is charged for using the mikveh, and that goes towards maintenance of the mikveh. So it is a community mikveh. But because of the situation we're in, the mikveh has been closed to, at least for conversion purposes, since mid-March. And so I asked Rabbi Gelman when it's going to be available again, and he said he just doesn't know. He feels bad that it's putting off the conversion ceremonies for many people, but he doesn't know yet when it's going to be open. So I can't tell you anything more than that. I am going to have a discussion with some of my colleagues. There are some alternatives which are not as convenient, which may involve going to a nearby beach or another moving body of water, a river possibly. So I need to find out how my colleagues have been doing that, what conditions they use. The tradition is that nothing comes between you and the water. So you're not wearing clothes. So if it's going to be out in a public space, how do you do that and maintain modesty? So I need to learn more about how that's done. I haven't had to worry about it because my first job as a rabbi was here. And ever since I've been doing conversions, we went to UOS and it was never an issue. Now it may be an issue for some time, so I need to look into that. My guess is the mikveh may be open when the city starts to open up, which may be soon. After all, it's not like a large group of people are congregating in a room. It's just a couple of people. So it would seem to be one of those activities which could be done if it's done carefully without spreading a virus. But I don't know. In any case, so nothing is coming between you and the water when you go into the mikveh. And for that reason, if it's a male convert, one of the members of the Beit Din, usually there's at least one member of the Beit Din who's a man, who can be in the mikveh room just to see that you're completely immersed in the water. Somebody has to see you immersed in the water. There's ways to do it more modestly if that's an issue, but so you need to have a witness there. For women, obviously, in the old days, men were on the Beit Din, men were on the court. So you would have to have a woman who's a mikveh witness be in the room, a Jewish woman who would make sure that you were immersed in the water. And in that case, it can be a woman of your choice. So if you know a Jewish woman that you trust and feel comfortable with, you can choose that person. Now that we have Rabbi Fort on our staff, she has served as a mikveh witness as well as a member of the Beit Din on a number of conversions. And if she's available, that would be fantastic. My wife has also served as a mikveh witness. We've had other people do that. So, but somehow you need to have a mikveh witness. So, so let's go back to the list here. So that's the mikveh witness. The cost of the mikveh at UOS is $180. As I said, that cost goes to maintenance of the mikveh. It's run like a kind of a swimming pool, and they actually can smell the chlorine a lot of times. It's kept very clean. Most of the water is tap water, but it's mixed with what's called mayim chayim, living water, which in this case comes from the rain. But again, there's some specific regulations about how to draw the water from the roof into the mikveh, that it's not considered, that it's still considered rainwater, mayim chayim. And so they then store it in a pool of water right next to the main mikveh bath. And there's two holes that connect the pool of rainwater with the mikveh water. And that's what makes the whole mikveh bath kosher. So first you have to maintain that whole system. Then you have to have the pool cleaners come out and clean it regularly. You can imagine different people are using it. You want to maintain its um, fitness for use. So there's expenses involved. The $180 fee goes all to UOS to maintain the mikvah. On the day of the ceremony, so again, nothing should come between you and the water. So people say you should be clean. There are showers in the mikvah area, private showers. Close the doors. You can take a shower before you go into the bath if you want to. But if you take a shower before you come, in my opinion, that certainly is fine. You should not have makeup or hairspray or anything, nail polish, anything that would come between some part of your body and the mikvah water. I have suggested bringing a towel. The mikvah now usually has towels, but just in case, it's always handy to have your own. And then you need a Hebrew name. Most Jews don't get to choose their Hebrew name. We get, our parents choose our name just like everything else. But you now have an opportunity to choose your name, and so it can be something that's meaningful to you. I have a Hebrew name dictionary, and if you want to make a 15-minute appointment or something, we can talk on the phone and suggest some names, and we can come up with something. Usually Jewish parents pick a Hebrew name that sounds like or begins with the first letter of their English name. The parents usually are obsessed about the English name and then pick a Hebrew name, or they obsess about the Hebrew name and then find an English name that sort of matches. Either way. So for instance, my name is Stephen, and my parents chose Simcha, which is not at all related to the word Stephen, but it begins with the S sound. Steve Simcha. So they knew they wanted to name me Simcha, and Steve was a common name at the time, so they chose Steve. That's how they did it. So you can reverse engineer that and take your English name and pick a Hebrew name that goes with that. It could also have the same meaning. For instance, if your name is Rose, a woman's name Rose, in Hebrew, that would be Varda. Varda is a Hebrew name. Or sometimes Shoshana. The word Shoshana can either mean rose or a lily. So you can take a Hebrew word that has the same meaning as your English name or a related meaning to your English name. Or you could just pick a name of a person in the Bible that you like, or a person or a name that means something to you that you like. There's a lot of different ways to do that, but you just have to choose a name. Yes, it means joy. The answer, yeah. Simcha means joy. In fact, I got a lot of grief from that sometime, not a lot, some. My first year in Israel, I went to an Ulpan class in Israel, believe it or not. And she's going around the room asking what everybody's name is. I said, my name is Simcha. And she looks at me and she says, that's a girl's name, which is true. Many women are named Simcha. And in fact, I was named after a woman named Simcha, my great aunt. But then I pointed out to her that Israel has had several politicians, Simcha Dinitz, who I think was an ambassador to the United States or something. And she said, oh yeah, Simcha Dinitz, okay. So it could be a man's name as well as a woman's name, but it does mean joy. And I think the name fits. I don't know, my parents just we're lucky that way, I guess. Okay, so Hebrew name. So you can, I haven't done this recently, but if you would like to, you can recite the Shema. Many people recite the Shema, either just the first line, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, at the ceremony, or you can do the Shema and the rest of the paragraph, V'ahavta. I think that one of the documents I have here that I posted on our page there for the class includes both in Hebrew and English translation and in English letters. So there's an opportunity for you to do that if you'd like to. You need to know the blessings for the mikvah and the Shechianu. Again, that's an attachment document that's attached. Let me see if it's here. There's the blessings for immersion in the mikvah. It's one of the documents that's attached. It's Baruch Atah Adonai. This Hey represents God's name, Yud Hey Vav Hey. So this way you don't have to worry about throwing out the paper if you printed it out. You're not supposed to throw away God's name. So Baruch Atah Yud Hey Vav Hey Eloheinu. This is spelled with a kuf intentionally because again Eloheinu is a name for God, so I put a kuf in there instead, so you can throw out the paper. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu. That's sort of the standard blessing formula when you're about to do a commandment, a mitzvah. Right? God has sanctified us with his commandments, and he has commanded us, v'tzivanu, he has commanded us, al ha-tevilah, about the immersion in water. Okay, so that's in English letters, and then the translation over here. And the second blessing is one that we recite on all special occasions. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehechiyanu v'kiyamanu v'higiyanu lazman hazeh. Blessed are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who has granted us life, sustained us, and enabled us to reach this special occasion. We say that on all festivals. Shabbat, on Shavuot we'll say it, on Passover, on Sukkot, and on Rosh Hashanah we say it, the New Year, and you know, on any time we do a special occasion, weddings, bar mitzvahs, all those things we say that blessing. So, so those are the two blessings you need to do. So what you're going to do is you're going to immerse in the mikveh. I'm going to show you a diagram of the mikveh room in a minute. But you you go into the water. You immerse once in the water, completely submerged under the water. You come up, you say those two blessings, and then you immerse 2 more times. That's kind of the procedure for that. Okay, so now we'll go back to the, okay, blessings for the mikveh. So we need a home address, phone number, email, etc., so we can contact you. And if we used to mail, there's a certificate of conversion that I prepare for the ceremony, and also the declaration, which I'll show you in a minute. My assistant Lisa then stamps it with the stamp of Beth Yeshurun, so it looks official. And we mail it out to you along with an application. We send out an application for membership, basically. So when you convert in this program, you get 1 year free membership in our congregation. And all you have to do is fill out the papers to, you know, your name, address, etc., whatever information. So you're in our database, and then we can contact you when we need to. And so you just have to fill that information out, and then you're automatically a member for a year. And after that, then it follows whatever the schedule is for membership, so that we can keep the building, I would say, up and running. But of course, it's not really running right now. But keep everybody employed and keep the lights on. So so that's about that. Then arrange a Jewish wedding. So many people who are already married in a secular marriage, wedding ceremony, for instance, may want to do a Jewish wedding. I kind of recommend it. It's a nice thing. Doesn't have to be a big ceremony. It can be a small ceremony, just me and the bride and the groom and 2 witnesses. And we'll do all the blessings and sign the papers, and you can do a ketubah. Or many people who have not been married, they're participating in this class to get married, so we arrange the Jewish wedding for that. Okay, so this now is, oh, this is not good. I don't know why that came out kind of crummy. So this was originally a Word document that I exported to a PDF file, and some of it didn't convert so well. Anyway, this is a not drawn to scale diagram of the mikveh room. It's its own room. It's upstairs, so it was not affected by the flood. And there's this reception area, which is twice the size at least. So when you enter through a door back here, you have this big reception area with some stuffed chairs and a mirror and other things. And a number of people, a handful of people, can kind of wait in this area while the person goes into the mikveh with a mikveh witness. So typically here we'll have the Jewish court, the 3 people on the Beit Din. And if you want to bring 1 or 2 family members or whatever, they can kind of wait out here also. There's doors. I didn't draw the doors in. There's a door going into each of these changing rooms and into the mikveh room. off the reception area. And then there's connecting doors between each changing room and the mikveh area. So what you do is you go into one of the two changing areas. Both of them have shower, toilet, and whatever. And you can change, get ready to go into the mikveh. We close all the outside doors. You go through the connecting door into the mikveh. Over here, there are the 7 steps going down into the mikveh bath. That's one of the key things that a mikveh needs is seven stairs going down into the mikveh. Archaeologists in Israel have uncovered ancient mikvahs from 2,000 years ago, and the way they can recognize it as a mikvah is those 7 steps going into the mikveh bath. So you'll see there's a kind of a walkway here. There's 7 steps going down into the mikveh bath, and then over here it slants down like a swimming pool does to get to about 5.5 feet total. You don't need to go in all the way. You just need to go in far enough so that if you lift up your legs and submerge yourself, your entire body will be underwater all at once. I don't swim too well. So, and 5.5 feet is is over my head already. So when I go in, I would prefer to have my head above water, and then I just have to lift up my legs and submerge myself, and then I'm okay. And then I can put my feet down and I don't have to worry about not being able to swim. So anyway, by the mikveh is generally heated. It's like a heated, and like I said, it's kept clean and sanitary. So it should be a pleasant experience. Not all mikvahs are as well kept. This one is. So in any case, you're going to go in, you're going to immerse, you're going to say the 2 blessings, immerse 2 more times, go back into the changing room with a towel, dry off, get dressed, and then you come out again. Okay, so this is the reception area where everybody else is waiting for you. Inside the mikveh bath, you have to say those 2 blessings. If you have need a little help with the blessings, you can hear through the door, and I can help you with the blessings to get you through it if you need to. Okay, so that's that part. And we have some new, it's room temperature. Oh, is the mikveh water cold or warm? It's actually slightly warm. It's not hot. They try to keep it as like a warm swimming pool, a warm, pleasant swimming pool temperature. Okay, let me see what else that I want to tell you about. So let's take a look at what else there is here. So we looked at we looked at the Shema. Oh, here's the Shema with the blessings. So again, you've got the Hebrew and English letters, English translation, and again, the V'ahavta with English letters and English translation. So you can practice that if you'd like. This would also be helpful for you in prayers. We say this twice every day, so it doesn't hurt to start learning to recite the Shema and the V'ahavta, and it could be something you want to do at the mikveh. There's the blessings for conversion. So that's all the PDF files. Now I've got a couple of Word files I want to show you. So let's do this one first. So this is the so what happens, what's the first thing that happens? It used to be, and hopefully will be soon again, we will meet at Beth Yeshurun, at UOS. If UOS is not able to do this first part for us, they were very gracious in giving us a space for us to conduct the Beit Din part of the ceremony. They don't have to do that. They just do that because they're nice. They have to keep the mikveh open for people, but they don't have the other space. They just make available because they're nice people. If they can't, for whatever reason, do that because of the current regulations, we could probably arrange to meet at Beth Yeshurun in a place where we can all be appropriately socially distanced from each other. To think in these new terms. So we'll meet in a place at Beth Yeshurun, let's say. So the first thing you do is I introduce you to the Beit Din, so who you are, who they are, and I might say a few words about you, and then you kind of tell your story about why you want to be Jewish, what got you interested, where you're at, maybe something about the class. It could just be a brief statement of a few minutes. And then the Beit Din asks you questions. Now, I understand in some Orthodox circles and maybe some conservative circles, they ask these really ridiculous questions like, what happens if you're cooking chicken soup and a drop of milk falls in the chicken soup? What do you do to kosher it? Or who was Moses' great-grandmother, or some other kind of crazy thing like that. Nobody asks those questions in my Beit Dins. Because to me, like this is not a $64,000 question pyramid thing, whatever, you know. This is just to understand that you understand what you're doing. So the questions they ask are, you know, what's your favorite holiday? What's your favorite holiday and why? Right. So that gives people an idea that you've experienced the Jewish calendar. You have an idea what you like and don't like, and what makes something interesting in a particular holiday to you. What holiday do you not like so much, maybe? What Jewish value do you like the most? What Jewish practice do you think will be the most difficult for you? Learning is forever. You know, everybody is on a as long as we're living, we're on a path towards learning more about life, and part of learning about life for Jews is learning about Judaism. So what do you want to learn next? How do you want to engage in the community after this is done? Where do you see yourself fitting in? So those are the kinds of questions they ask, which I think are more to the point of, you know, is this something you really want to do? Are there any wrong answers? Can you fail? So I've never had anybody fail a mikvah. Well, there might have been one case. I mean, I've been in 22 years now. One case where I think somebody gave an answer that was like, oh boy, let's think about this. But it was really, I think it was a matter of belief, and it related to something related to Christianity. And I did have one person who I did not present to a Beit Din because she, you know, she loved Judaism, she loved everything about it, but she still felt that Jesus was important in her life. And I said, look, I cannot, not only can I not do your conversion, but even if I did it, most Jews wouldn't consider you really Jewish because Jesus just is not part of our world. He was a nice Jew, from our perspective. He was a nice Jewish man who had some good things to say, but he was not divine. I mean, this is Jewish beliefs. He's not divine. He was not the Messiah. He didn't die for our sins. And he may have thought he was the Messiah, but he was crucified by the Romans because they thought he thought he was a Messiah. Right. So, and he's not in our worldview, because we don't, unless we're doing interfaith dialogue, we don't really talk about Jesus. So she was very honest, and she said, look, he's still very important in my life. And I said, I can't do your conversion. It was, you know, difficult, but that's just how it is. So I don't think anybody's given a wrong, getting back to the question, I don't think anybody's given a wrong answer. You know, there's been people who, you know, they'll ask, well, what are you doing about keeping kosher? And you probably want to have an answer for that. What are you doing about keeping kosher? Is there anything you've given up in the process of becoming kosher, and, you know, your goal eventually to be more kosher or something like that? You know, I mean, as long as your intent is to be part of the Jewish community, you have a good understanding of what that means. I don't think you can really give a wrong answer. People answering what holiday they like, I mean, I've had everything from Purim to Yom Kippur, and everything in between. So, yeah. Okay. Okay, so you go before the Beit Din, and they ask these questions, and after they're done asking questions, they're pretty satisfied that you seem to know what you're doing, which hopefully by this point in the process you do. then you make this formal declaration in front of the Beit Din. So it says we used to, by the way, do this in the chapel at United Orthodox Synagogue, but their chapel has been wiped out by the storm. So now we don't do it there. It's a little more powerful, I think, to do it in front of the Ark. And if we end up doing it at Beth Yeshurun, we might use the chapel at Beth Yeshurun instead. But then we'd have to travel over to UOS for the mikvah part. Not a big deal, it's 5 minutes away. Anyway, so you say, in the presence of God and of this rabbinical tribunal, I hereby declare my desire to accept the principles of Judaism, to adhere to its practices and ceremonies, and to become a member of the Jewish people. This is where you say, yeah, I'm going to follow the rules and join the Jewish people. One of the things I said at the beginning of the class was becoming Jewish is a lot like becoming a naturalized citizen of the United States. There's a process of learning the Constitution, some American history, some things, some rules. And then you pass a test, and then you have a ceremony in front of a judge where you say, yes, I'm going to be a good citizen, I promise to be a good citizen of the United States. As one of my teachers pointed out, in that process, you say, I'm going to abide by the laws of the country, right? Do you know all the laws of the country? Did you go to law school? Did you study all the details? No, but you lived here for a while. You have an idea how the country works, and you want to be a citizen, and you'll take responsibility for following the rules, even if you don't know what all the details are. That's kind of what the idea is here. I'm accepting on myself. I understand that Judaism is a religion of rules and rituals, and I want to participate in that. And I may not be 100% now, and I may not even know what all those rules and rituals are, but it's a community I want to be part of, and I'm going to do my part. That's kind of what that is. So that is I'm accepting, becoming a member of the Jewish people. I affirm my commitment to the God of Israel, right? So this is like the way Jews understand God. There are other paths to God, but I'm doing the Jewish one. The Torah of Israel, which is that we have for understanding God, but also creating our community, our society, and the people of Israel. I want to be part of you. I want to be part of your people. By the way, this kind of echoes what Ruth said to Naomi, which many with the Jewish tradition understands as her conversion statement. She says, don't urge me to leave you, to turn away from following you, for wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you lodge, I will lodge. Where you die, will I die, and there I will be buried. Oh, your God will be, your people will be my people, and your God, my God. And then where you die, will I die, and there I'll be buried. I vow that nothing but death could part me from you. Right? So she accepts your God is my God, and your people are my people. Right? So you're committing to the God of Israel, the Torah of Israel, and the people of Israel. And that's what you want to do. So irrevocably accepting Judaism, I sever my ties to any other religion with which I once may have been affiliated. I do this of my own free will and volition. Nobody's forcing me to do this. And with the realization of the true significance and tenets of, again, you don't know all the rules of Judaism, but you have you've been around for a while, so you have an idea. Yeah, this is the path of life I want to follow. I pray that my present determination guide me through life, so I may be worthy of the sacred tradition fellowship I now join. I pray that I may ever remain conscious of the privileges and corresponding duties that my affiliation with the House of Israel imposes on me. I declare my firm determination to live a Jewish life and conduct a Jewish home. So, so in the Orthodox world, they want to know that that means you will be strictly Shabbat observant and strictly kosher observant and adhere to the other matters strictly. So I'm a conservative rabbi at a conservative synagogue where most of our members probably don't keep so kosher. They keep some kind of kosher. They certainly know that keeping kosher is the ideal, that they should be keeping kosher. They expect us, the rabbis, to keep kosher. They expect the synagogue to keep kosher. So I don't expect everybody who converts with me to be strictly kosher. I just, the idea again is that you understand that's the ideal and that you're doing something to sort of move in that direction. That's really what I'm looking for. And that's kind of what I think this is addressing here, is that I want to live a Jewish life to the best I can, given what's going on in the world, and conduct a Jewish home. We'll put a mezuzah up on the doorpost like Jews do, the little box on the doorpost. If I'm blessed with any future male children, I promise to have them brought into the covenant of Abraham. That's the circumcision. And I further promise to bring up any future children whom God blesses me in loyalty to Jewish practices and faithfulness, Jewish hopes, and the Jewish way of life. I pray that I may continue to grow and love Judaism and find blessing because of my decision to become one with the Jewish people. Joining Judaism, the Jewish people may add my willing heart and hands to our eternal task of being God's partners and seeking to perfect the world under God's universal sovereignty. This is kind of a good summary statement of what we Jews see as our mission in the world, right? To bring holiness, goodness, kindness, compassion, fairness, honesty, justice into the world. We see ourselves as partners with God in trying to make that happen in the world, and you want to join that project. That's the big picture. And then this is the line from the Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, and the one follows it, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Vayed. And then you sign it here, the rabbis sign it here, and that's the declaration. One other thing I want to show you is I think it's the mikvah questions. So let's do that, and then I'll take the other questions. Let's see. Yes, okay, so this is the only other thing. So this is what the essays for conversion look like, the ones you have to write. Describe the process that led you to want to become Jewish. What Jewish values and beliefs do you find most appealing and persuasive? How is Judaism more appropriate for you than your former religious life or lifestyle? And if it was about Christianity, then, explain how you understand Jesus now. Again, this is getting at the idea that you really want to be Jewish and not Christian or some other faith. Describe how your personal and home life has changed because of Jewish tradition, how it may yet change in the future, what else you plan to do in the future, not immediately, but when you can. Your sense of identification with the Jewish people, because it's not just a religion, it's about being part of the people. In relation to Israel, world Jewry, the local Jewish community in your synagogue, how do you want to get involved? That's why next week I was going to bring in people from the community to talk about what they do, so you can think of different ways you might want to get involved. And then particularly, how do you want to fulfill the mitzvah of tzedakah, giving to charity? So when I talked about that, I said that we want to be generous to all kinds of organizations that need our help, but we also need to spend a percentage of our money and resources towards Jewish things, because if Jews don't support the Jewish institutions, who's going to support them? So the Synagogue Federation, some other organizations, but also the Houston Food Bank, and any other things you want to do, volunteer your time or resources towards. What is your commitment towards prayer and religious services? Have you been participating? Do you plan to participate more? That kind of thing. So those are the questions. Those are 7 questions to address. Okay, let's see what the questions are here. Yes, the mikveh witness can definitely help you with the blessings, and I can also help you through the door. In fact, we try to, if you can project loud enough, to project from the mikveh when you're reciting the blessings, so we can say amen to your blessing, so we can hear you say the blessings. Any wrong answers? What would our conversion essay? Oh, what does a conversion essay do? So. To organize the date of your ceremony. So some of my colleagues who run a class like this and other parts of the country try to organize all the ceremonies to happen on one day. And they get the people to sit on the Beit Din to take the whole day off to do just that, so it's hours and one after the other. There's some element of convenience, I suppose, to that for the Beit Din, but it's not really so convenient to try and organize it and try and get a time when everybody can go. So my approach has been that I found that people in the class feel ready to do this at different times, and rather than try and force everybody to do it on one day, I do each one separately. So when you feel like you're ready to do this, you have to write the essay questions. They should be done, let's say, if possible, maybe 2 weeks before you want to have the ceremony. So I can look it over and we can talk about it if we talk about the questions if we need to. But setting up and arranging the ceremony once UOS is available again usually can be done a week or two in advance. The mikveh room is generally open during the day. The mikveh times would be between on Monday through Friday after 10 and before 4 o'clock. So it's sort of shortened business hours during the weekdays. Mondays, I don't like to schedule them because that's my day off. So that leaves Tuesday through Friday. And we fit them into my schedule and we fit it into your schedule and we make sure the mikveh is available. And then we get the other 2 members of the Beit Din. So all of that usually doesn't take more than a couple days to figure out. If we're planning a week in advance, we can usually arrange it and schedule it. The first thing we find out is if the mikveh is available. If it is, then we work around that schedule. If it's not, then Lisa, my assistant, would call you back and say, sorry, we can't do it then. How about this time or this time? And we try to schedule it there. So that's kind of how that goes. So we backing it up from when the scheduled mikveh is going to be. A couple of weeks before that, have the essay questions in so we can make sure we go over those first. That would be helpful. Some people, are procrastinators, and I am sympathetic to that because I can be a procrastinator myself sometimes. So the questions come in kind of late, but you definitely need to have them before the ceremony and earlier rather than later, because if there's something to talk about, we should talk about it and straighten it out before we get to the Beit Din. If secularly married, do you have to get divorced before having a Jewish wedding? No, you don't. No, the way I see it, I mean, I'm a sort of a lawyer, so my view is you're married according to the laws of Texas and the United States of America. And so therefore with, presumably every other country in the world that would recognize American law. So you're married, but you're not married under Jewish law per se. So you're now doing another ceremony. So you're married for Jewish purposes. Doesn't affect, they're independent. If we assume the mikveh were to open mid-May, would June be the time frame for establishing the ceremony? Yeah, so that's, I'm hoping we'll be able to do something like that we'll be able to start doing mikveh ceremonies in June. There's no harm in getting your essays in early and just saying, okay, so when we can set up the ceremony, we'll do it. So you can start submitting essay questions now. And like I said, I'll consult with some of my colleagues to see what alternatives might be if it looks like the mikveh is not going to be ready in June. Maybe we'll try and figure out some alternative way to do this. Are there any other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
It's Alexis, by the way. I was wondering, is it possible to schedule like a meeting with you, whether that be on the phone or like a Zoom meeting for some of the classes that we missed, and also to kind of discuss like some of the things that we've gone over and read, just to get like a better understanding before all this?
Yeah, that's a great idea. So my schedule is generally pretty flexible now. I mean, I think I'm doing more now. Probably you've had this feeling also. They're doing more work now than we did before. I got more emails, phone calls, everything else going on, but it's flexible. And so I'm happy to schedule a time on the phone, I guess, to meet, and that's a little, it's not as personable because we don't get to talk face to face, but it's easier to schedule because we don't have to travel anywhere.
Yeah.
Phone.
Would I just do that through Lisa?
Pardon?
Sorry to interrupt. Would I just do that through Lisa then?
Yes, yeah. So that's what I was going to say. Schedule something with Lisa. try to set up either, depending on what you think you would want to have, half an hour. And if it's a number of topics to talk about, we can schedule a few meetings, over a series of weeks or something.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I'm happy to talk with any of you all about questions that you have about the class, or things that were not clear, or things you missed. And I finally got together the handouts. I haven't put them in a folder yet, but I did send them to one member of the class. I think I overwhelmed her. She missed a number of classes, but she's been studying on her own. She's got a Jewish family that's very supportive, and including some Orthodox people who are kind of helping her learn the sort of the things. So I'm going to meet with her also on the side a few times.
Awesome. Thank you.
So yeah, so happy to meet with you.
Toda Rabbi.
You're welcome. Who's on the Beit Din? So yeah, that's a really good question. So so in the Orthodox world, again, they're very this is a philosophical point. The Orthodox seems to want to make it very difficult to convert, and so they only have specialty rabbis who sit on their Beit Din who do these things. My view is that was not the intent of Judaism originally, and certainly shouldn't be how we do it today. This is kind of my talk about Ruth, the book. I'll come back to your question in a second, but I'm going to give you the background. So the book of Ruth is fascinating because Ruth is a Moabite woman, and in Deuteronomy it explicitly says you are not allowed to marry Moabite people, and it doesn't say men or women. It says Moabite people. Keep them out of your community. They weren't friendly to you. They don't belong to. Forget them. And here's a Moabite woman who converts to Judaism and is the great-grandmother of King David. Many modern Bible scholars say that the book of Ruth was written sometime after the books of Ezra and Nehemiah, some of the later books in the Bible. And in Ezra and Nehemiah, they're the prophets of the return from the Babylonian exile. And many Jews, while they were living in the Babylonian exile, married local women. The men married local women. And now they're coming back, and Ezra and Nehemiah say, divorce those women, separate yourselves from them. They are going to destroy our community, keep them away. And then you have Ruth, the book of Ruth, which if it's written after that is like, not only should you not keep them away, here's a Moabite woman, one that Torah says you're not supposed to marry, but she's a very special person. So it seems to be a counterpoint to this sort of xenophobic view of Ezra and Nehemiah. So one way to understand this contrast between these two sources is that it really a lot depends on what times you're living in and why people are coming, right? So Ezra and Nehemiah were concerned that the women from Babylonia had not really adopted Judaism, that they may still be worshiping their foreign gods, and that they're therefore teaching the children not to be Jews. That's what they were concerned about. Not the fact that they were foreigners, but that they were foreigners who didn't really want to be part of the Jewish world. They wanted to keep their former faith and traditions. And that would interfere with the future of Judaism. They're trying to reconstitute the Jewish people in their homeland at a very difficult time when what is a Jew and who is a Jew and how do we practice Judaism in this new world we're creating? It was vital to the enterprise. So they said, these people are going to distract from our agenda. Whereas Ruth may have been written a generation or two later after the community is already established. And Ruth is clearly someone who doesn't want to worship her foreign gods. I mean, that's what the book is about. She's turning away from the practices of her people and saying, I want to be part of the Jewish people. I want to follow the Jewish and be the Jewish God, right? So that's what makes her the ideal convert. So, but because we have this tension between Ezra and Nehemiah on the one hand and Ruth on the other, Orthodoxy tends to be towards the more strict side and say, well, we want to make sure that this person is 100% committed, and we're going to investigate and And if they're not 100%, then we're not interested. Whereas the sources in the Talmud seem to be, at least the ones that make it into Jewish law, are much more open-minded. It's like you, as I said at the beginning of the class, you explain to the person something, some of the rules of Judaism, some of the more difficult ones, some of the easier ones. And if they say, yeah, I want to be part of this program and I want to join your people, then you convert them. And it's not complicated, it's not hard. And I think in the world, so in the past, in the Middle Ages, Jews may have been rightly concerned that people pretended to want to join the Jewish people so they could later leave and then go to the Catholic Church and say how terrible the Jews are because they were sitting on the inside and they know all the secrets of the Jewish people, and they're going to, and get the Jewish community in trouble with the Catholic Church. And that was a real concern. We don't have that problem today. We live in an open, free market society where people can choose to be whatever religion they want to be. And people who like the idea of being Jewish, I think we should just welcome them in, explain what it is, and say, join us. So I don't believe in making it hard. So now to quick question, who sits on the Beit Din? So in the Orthodox world, they like to pick certain rabbis who are going to be particularly difficult to impress, it seems, for these Beit Dins. But the truth is, again, what the sources say, and I actually have an Orthodox rabbi who wrote this in a book, and I can show it to people who are interested. The requirements for sitting on a Beit Din for conversion are not any more strict than the requirements for witnesses at a Jewish wedding. So who do you have as witnesses for a Jewish wedding? So the people if I can get rabbis to serve on three rabbis to serve on the Beit Din, I try to get three rabbis, and they're not, they're like me, not strict. They're honestly interested in welcoming converts and want to help you with the process. So Sarah Fort, for instance, or one of the other rabbis in Reform or conservative rabbis in town. But if I can't get three rabbis, and I do a lot of these, so it's not always easy to get three rabbis, you really only need one rabbi, me, who knows what the rules are, and two other upstanding members of the Jewish community to serve on the Beit Din. And so usually when I can't get a rabbi, I pick somebody who is either active in the chapel minyan or our Shabbat services, has an active role in one of those, or is in the museum minyan or something like that. Somebody who is a committed Jewish person to our community, and that's who sits on the Beit Din. Can we wait till US opens back up to convert? Yes, you certainly can. I really, really hope, and I imagine they're going to have it open by fall. Hopefully by June or maybe July. Hopefully, we'll see. But you could definitely wait. That's up to you. The only time constraint would come if you're not married and you want to have a Jewish wedding, and you want to have one of the Beth Yeshurun rabbis, friend like me, do the wedding ceremony. You have to be Jewish to do the Jewish ceremony. So so then if you have a date in mind for that, that's kind of you have to do the conversion ceremony before the wedding date. Fingers crossed, yes. Any other questions? Okay, so thank you all for sticking with this program here through through the craziness of the last couple of months, and we'll and please do set up phone meetings, phone appointments, if you would like. Let me put my I'll put my cell phone number here also in case you're having trouble getting a hold of somebody. Okay, that's my cell phone number in the chat box there. And you can text me if you're having trouble reaching somebody, or call. And that's it. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all again for coming and participating, and we really do welcome. I think Beth Yeshurun is very welcoming to people who want to join us, and that's the point I'm going to make actually in my talk at lunchtime about Ruth. That really should be the model. We should be thrilled that people want to be part of our world, and I certainly am, and I think most Beth Yeshurun people are as well. Okay, thanks for coming. We'll stop the meeting.
Matt just wrote me a message.